This cat hated wearing clothes. After falling asleep, she transformed into a young maiden, her delicate skin fully exposed to the master of the bed. As the symbol of the curse, cats are the beings that will lead the empire to ruin. Because of this, citizens hunted them relentlessly. But this girl had chosen to travel as a kitten. New to the world, she was extremely cautious, yet still, she was discovered by the empire's crown prince. Terrified, the little kitten wet herself, crying and begging to be spared. Killian found her fascinating. In his education, cats were supposed to be vicious creatures, yet the tiny thing before him seemed utterly helpless. He tucked her into his pocket and brought her back to the palace. The kitten believed he was going to kill her, so she used all her strength to act cute. Whatever he requested, she complied without hesitation, offering her paw, rolling to show her belly, kissing his fingers. No matter how demanding his requests, she did her best to fulfill them. These soft gestures delighted Killian. Through this series of tests, he realized she could understand human speech. To reward such obedience, Killian prepared food for her. For a creature so fragile she could break under the slightest force, he couldn't understand how she could possibly be the monster destined to destroy the empire. When she finished eating, he thoughtfully wiped the crumbs from her mouth. Suddenly, a sound from outside made both the kitten and the man tense. Without warning, the cat's entire body was stuffed into a bag. The rough handling hurt, but she still focused on the voices beyond. I heard you haven't had much appetite lately, yet you ate my food with such relish. So I came personally to express my gratitude. These familiar yet false words made the kitten's fur stand on end. This was Killian's wicked stepmother. For power, she had secretly laced the emperor's and crown prince's meals with dark magic, turning them into her puppets. Now Catherine was using the emperor as an excuse to insist the crown prince eat the food she brought. The plot was clear. Watching Killian about to give in, the kitten grew frantic, pacing like an ant on a hot pan. She absolutely could not let him eat that cursed food. With no choice left, she decided to act. Killian felt a sudden sharp pain at his waist. He pressed down on the restless little creature, but then came an even fiercer attack. Scratches marked his hand, and his anger flared. He dismissed Catherine, then pulled out the culprit. Hey, see these wounds? The kitten froze, her mind racing for an explanation. But to him, her frantic speech was only meows. Death felt imminent. She braced for punishment, but instead, his large hand gently patted her head. You don't like being in the pocket? Fine, I'll let you out, but don't disturb my meal again. Helpless and disheartened, the kitten suddenly had an idea. She grabbed the crown prince's dining hand, probing for his sensitive spots. When he reacted, she darted toward the suspicious-smelling food and launched a fierce attack. Killian shook his head, watching this crazy cat. With no escape, she resorted to the universal language, acting out a scene of food poisoning with all four legs. The message was clear, none of the food could be eaten. Killian was baffled. This cat was too clever, even pointing out which dishes were dangerous. And her stubborn, adorable behavior was irresistible. He decided to temporarily adopt her, letting her eat and live by his side. Perhaps more surprises lay ahead. In the stillness of deep night, just as Killian turned in his sleep, his hands suddenly felt a soft, unfamiliar touch. Confusion clouded his mind. Slowly, he opened his eyes, only to be startled awake by the sight before him. The woman's face, serene in sleep, was like a blooming flower, radiating an enchanting aura. Killian stared at the figure in his arms in astonishment. The next second, he reflexively sat up. What was going on? Wasn't his cat supposed to be in that position? How had it turned into a woman? Cats might be creatures of destruction, but when he had found her, she was far too weak. His original plan was to bring her back to the palace and decide later what to do with her. Who would have thought that this kitten could not only read the mood but had also saved him from food poisoning? So even if this cat was truly a monster that needed to be eliminated, she was still his find, his possession. And if anyone dared to touch what was his, no matter who they were, he would never forgive them. Killian ordered the woman to get up at once, but there was no response. Instantly, anger flared in him. He muttered under his breath and reached out to shake her awake, only for a dazzling light to flash before his eyes. The woman vanished, and his kitten was back. Killian froze, struggling to process what had just happened. The bewildered kitten was equally confused. Why was the crown prince looking at her like that? Could it be her sleeping posture had been too unrestrained and offended him? Betting on human dignity, she immediately began trying to please him. Killian watched her series of antics and guessed she probably didn't even know she could transform. To verify, he carefully lulled her to sleep again, tucking the blankets snugly around her. Sure enough, his kitten became the same black-haired maiden. Killian's mind churned. In the Empire's teachings, cats were symbols of destruction and had to be wiped out completely. Yet this one, her presence hadn't brought ruin, and she could even transform into a human. Such a thing was unheard of. There were too many suspicious points, secrets hidden from history. As the Empire's future emperor, he would have to uncover them. His fingers lightly curled around the woman's hair. Until the truth came to light, she could not be discovered by others. She could not be taken away. She could only belong to him. A glance at her made his ears redden and his heart race. Compared to uncovering the truth, the most urgent matter at this moment was finding clothes for her too. He held his beloved cat close as they slept. Who would have thought that his warm bed cat would turn into a sleeping beauty? The shock kept him awake all night, while the kitten, completely unaware, slept soundly until dawn. When she awoke and went to look for her master, she found her short little legs tied up. "This is to keep you from running away." Killian ignored her protests and casually handed her some milk. He said nothing about what had happened the night before. Still, the kitten sensed something off in his expression, and the heavy scent of blood in the air. In the original story, Killian had endured the Emperor's punishments since childhood. Could the smell be coming from his own wounds? To confirm, the kitten tugged insistently at his clothes. When his belt came loose, countless glaring wounds were revealed. Her fur almost bristled with fury. The man who would one day be called the strongest emperor was, in his crown prince days, enduring such cruelty willingly. She was angry at his foolishness, and yet, she couldn't help but feel sympathy. It must have hurt terribly. Killian picked up the frantically squirming little creature. "Why are you so agitated?" "Because you saw I was injured, and now you're flailing around?" He muttered it to himself, but his heart warmed. In this cold palace, the first to care about him was this little one. Though her true identity remained a mystery, for now, he had errands to run, buying the necessities they would need. The outside world, full of flowers and splendor, was a marvel to the innocent kitten. She blinked her obsidian eyes, gazing at everything in wonder. Killian caught her before she could topple out of the carriage. Besides, they had already reached their destination. After dismissing the shop staff, the kitten crawled out of Killian's pocket. The dazzling array of women's clothing before her made her head spin. Her big round eyes were full of question marks. Why was a grown man like the Crown Prince buying women's clothes? As far as she knew, the Crown Prince had no female friends. The only woman he had any connection to was that evil stepmother of his. Could these clothes be for her? But weren't they enemies? Anyone could see they had a bad relationship. The very idea that he might be touched just because the woman cooked for him every day was ridiculous. The kitten grew anxious. Those meals were prepared with sinister intentions, yet here he was, stupidly buying her clothes. That old witch pretending to be pure and innocent was unbearable to watch. She squirmed in his arms, silently urging him to wake up before he counted the money for his own sale. Her puffy, angry little face, however, only made Killian's heart melt. He covered his mouth to hide a laugh. It seemed the little one didn't even realize who these clothes were for. Could she truly be unaware that she transformed into a human while sleeping? Then, for now, he would be the only one to know. Amused, Killian began humming a tune as they walked. His sudden change in behavior made the kitten's spine tingle. That expression, he was clearly plotting something. "Do you want some snacks?" he suddenly asked. The offer instantly made her drop all suspicion. Food always won. Feeling his burning gaze, the kitten wondered if she was being too greedy eating alone. Maybe she should share. She awkwardly pushed the remaining half of the dessert toward him. "I don't like sweets." "You eat more," he replied. Being petted by her master felt wonderful, but deep down, her soul was still human. She reminded herself to stay vigilant. If this went on, she'd truly become a spoiled little cat. Still, where were they going? This path didn't seem to lead back to the palace. Alarm bells went off in her head. Could he be planning to sell her? But the man's gentle strokes lulled her into drowsiness, and before long, she drifted into dreamland. Killian quietly took out a blanket and covered her. This time, he had made thorough preparations. If he wanted to uncover the truth about the cat girl's transformation, he had to take a risk, by visiting the magicians. Since the reign of the previous emperor, magic had been condemned as evil, and the royal family had exiled all magic users. The magician Baron was clearly surprised by the crown prince's sudden appearance, but still maintained the proper courtesies. "Pardon my rudeness, but does the palace know you're here? Your sudden visit could cause us trouble," he said coldly. Hilda's resentment toward the royal family was obvious, and Killian wasn't fazed. Their hostility was expected. After all, the royal family had been the ones to exile them. But Killian hadn't come for diplomacy, he was here to confirm something. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the kitten. The air instantly froze. Mouths fell open in shock. Hilda's eyes flashed with fury. How could you bring the cursed cat here? The kitten was just as shocked. The purple-haired youth before her, wasn't he the young magician who would later rebel in the second half of the original story? This meant Killian had met them before his ascension, something entirely different from the plot she knew. While she was lost in thought, the purple-haired youth drew his sword to strike her down. At the critical moment, Killian stepped in and shielded his cat. Seeing his son act so rashly, Baron's heart leapt into his throat. Your Highness, please calm your anger. This child is young and ignorant. Put away your sword. Killian's gaze narrowed. It seemed his display of authority hadn't been enough. This agitated youth still didn't take him seriously. He disliked noisy, chattering people. If they wanted to test him, they could answer to the flames in his hand. A powerful wave of pressure swept through the room. No one had expected the Crown Prince to wield aura force. The kitten's eyes widened like copper bells. What was this man doing? In this world, only those who had reached the highest level of swordsmanship could possess such power. But aura force, like magic, was considered an evil art. And here he was, using it in front of magicians hostile to the royal family. Wasn't this just giving them a weapon against him? Why would he do such a thing? She couldn't understand it, but one thing was certain, this world's story was no longer the one she knew. At last, Killian revealed the purpose of his visit. He wanted the magicians to examine the curse on the cat. Baron, no longer daring to be negligent, immediately activated his magic to inspect the kitten. The results, however, were completely unexpected. This is incredible, he exclaimed. This cat contains a power that none of us can unlock. According to our analysis of the divine decree, she does not bear a curse at all, but rather divine protection. Because the gods personally protect her, she can survive generation after generation. Perhaps her parents are still alive. After speaking, Baron ordered his son to check the kitten's memories. As the magic probed deeper, the purple-haired youth discovered that the cat had lost all her previous memories. The only fragments that remained were of Crown Prince Killian. Killian stood dumbfounded. In his beloved cat's mind, there were only traces of him. He wanted to learn more about her situation, but the divine power marked upon the cat blocked the magic. All he could do was wait for Baron to review every related material. Meanwhile, Killian took out another contract. In his capacity as Crown Prince, he intended to formally sign a cooperation agreement with the Baron family. The reason he had chosen them was simple: they were the only pure magician family that had never submitted to the royal family in hundreds of years. The previous king, fearing the magician's power, had abolished the academy and destroyed its young talents. It had been a grave mistake. Killian knew that supporting justice was no easy task, but he was prepared. If they placed their trust in him, he promised that the magicians would share in this honor. Baron remained silent. For magicians, signing a contract meant dedicating their entire life. Yet from the very beginning, the Crown Prince had openly shown all his secrets. Perhaps such sincerity was worth trusting. They were also weary of living in hiding. The Baron family was willing to stake their lives to complete any task their master commanded. As soon as the signing was complete, Killian produced a pile of women's clothing and had the purple-haired youth cast magic on them so they could resize to fit their owner's body. Father and son exchanged puzzled glances. Purplehair felt like a sheep wandering into a tiger's den, but the Crown Prince was now their master. Whether they agreed or not, they had to comply. Once the magical clothes were ready, Killian began dressing his beloved cat. She was a cat who could transform into a beautiful maiden, yet always remained unclothed after transforming. To avoid awkwardness, the Crown Prince even brought out golden armor to coax her into wearing it, but the kitten kept shaking her head in refusal. She enjoyed sleeping naturally. If even this small pleasure was taken from her, then how could she continue as the standard bearer of the cat world? Resistance, even unto death, was her final means of defending her freedom. Killian coaxed her for a long time, but to no avail. Finally, he gave up trying to force her. It's your own insistence on having your way, he warned. Don't regret it later. The simple-minded kitten remained pure and innocent, completely unaware of the schemes around her. That night, a large hand gently tucked the blanket around the woman. His gaze lingered on her exposed shoulders, and the corner of his mouth curved into a barely perceptible smirk. So, when I told you to sleep with clothes on, you stubbornly refused. Now look what's happened. The kitten remained completely in the dark. She only felt that the man had been in unusually good spirits lately. According to the original plot, the 19-year-old Crown Prince should have consumed large amounts of dark magic potion by now. He should have been suffering constant pain and confusion. So how did he look so healthy and vigorous? Could he have some powerful recovery ability she didn't know about? As she pondered this, the emperor suddenly summoned the crown prince. Unease stirred in the kitten's heart. Sure enough, the summons was because the emperor had learned of his son's private meeting with magicians, with the malicious Catherine fanning the flames from the side. Fortunately, Killian had come prepared and successfully defused the crisis. The kitten, who had been waiting, almost fell asleep before the crown prince returned. When she saw his pained expression, she couldn't help but worry. Could it be that during afternoon tea, Catherine had put poison in the food again? The side effects of the dark magic potion were intense pain and vomiting, and the man's current symptoms were exactly those of early poisoning. This was the crown prince's most painful stage, so agonizing that he would soon turn dark and kill his own father in rebellion. Though he was the noble crown prince, he endured the pain alone, caught between enemies, yet still the only one protecting her. The kitten knew she was weak and ordinary, but for Killian's sake, she would do whatever she could. She dug out the women's clothing the man had bought last time, soaked them one by one, and laid them across him, hoping to bring down his temperature. Running back and forth to care for Killian, she soon had no strength left to climb onto the bed. With no choice, she put on the magic nightgown. A cat wearing a slip would definitely be laughed at, but fatigue and drowsiness came together, and she had no energy to care. When Killian woke the next morning, he felt something damp on his head. Taking it down, he found it was the soaked dress. Getting up to look, he discovered the woman had taken care of him all night before finally collapsing on the ground. A warm current flowed through his heart. In this hell-like place, there was someone who thought of him, someone who cared about his health. Silly woman, he murmured softly. What if you catch a cold sleeping on the ground? Killian gently picked her up, handling her as though she were a priceless treasure. His fingers slowly slid through her hair. You're so good, he said quietly. I'll give you a reward. Then he gently poked the kitten's nose. Time to wake up. The kitten was extremely unwilling, she hadn't slept enough, but since she was under someone else's roof, she got up anyway, panda-eyed and yawning. In the next instant, however, she became alert, gesturing in cat language and checking his condition. She placed her paw on his forehead, relieved to find the fever gone. Killian was deeply grateful for all she had done. As a reward, I'll call you Net from now on, he said. And there's something else I should tell you. When you fall asleep, you transform into a human. And in quite an unclothed state. The kitten finally learned the truth about her transformation. The shock of having her body seen made her break off relations with the crown prince on the spot. Her tail lashed furiously, showing her anger and dissatisfaction. This bad guy had known all along, yet let her remain in such embarrassing situations. Had his conscience been eaten by dogs? She regretted her devotion to him before. The kitten was furious, and the consequences were serious. No matter what explanations the crown prince gave, she met them with cat punches. Unfortunately, she didn't control her strength well and accidentally scratched him. Feeling a little guilty, she realized that offending her provider probably wasn't wise. I see my kitten is very angry, Killian said. Then rest well. I'll go handle official business first. Watching him leave, the kitten deflated like a balloon. If she had known she wouldn't get truly angry, her behavior just now felt excessive. She resolved to apologize when he returned. Suddenly, a commotion outside caught her attention. The sound was coming closer. She quickly hid under the bed. The visitor turned out to be the evil woman Catherine. I received news that the crown prince visited a clothing shop in town, Catherine said coldly. Before his highness returns, we must quickly find anything related to women. Once we do, I can use it to cause trouble. The maids glanced at one another. Ransacking the crown prince's bedroom was a serious crime, but they didn't dare offend the woman before them. The kitten under the bed was terrified. The clothing shop mentioned, wasn't that where they bought the slips? Time passed, second by second. The maids searched everywhere but found nothing. Catherine snapped. How could you find nothing? What are those eyes for? As she scolded them, a silver-haired maid walked in. Who are you? Are you the crown prince's servant, here to monitor me? Under Catherine's oppressive gaze, the maid trembled and said she had only come to clean. Suspicious but learning that the crown prince was returning, Catherine, though unwilling, had to leave for now. The kitten's heart finally settled. She waited for the silver-haired maid to leave so she could crawl out, but the danger hadn't passed. An even greater threat was approaching. The kitten felt the sky was collapsing. How did the woman know she was hiding here? She kept backing away, trying to avoid the magical grasp, but soon there was nowhere left to retreat. She resigned herself to fate. A voice suddenly rang out. Killian had returned. What are you doing here? The maid didn't dare meet his gaze, stammering that she came to clean. This place doesn't need it. Leave, quickly. Once the maid was gone, Killian anxiously called for his beloved cat. Fortunately, she was unharmed. I clearly locked the door before I left. How was it opened? Must be Catherine's tricks. The kitten noticed the scars on his hand and instantly felt guilty. She had treated him so badly that morning, yet he hadn't blamed her, and had even saved her. Licking his wounds was the only way she could think to make amends. Just then, the ring on Killian's hand began to glow. It was a call from the magician Baron. There must be progress regarding the kitten's situation. Meanwhile, the silver-haired maid who had left the crown prince's bedroom was wandering the garden, searching for something. How did you get in here? Baron was immediately on guard when the woman suddenly appeared. This is a space I created with magic, he said coldly. Aside from my master, no one should be able to enter. The maid claimed she had simply gotten lost and wandered in by accident, but Baron had been watching her since she stepped past the barrier. You were clearly searching for something. Could it be the cat? Cold sweat broke out across the maid's forehead as her mind raced for an excuse. Before she could think of an escape, the crown prince arrived. Killian recognized her at once. Looks like you didn't find the information you were after in my room, so you decided to follow me here. Just as she was about to be executed as a spy, the maid revealed her name, insisting she truly was only cleaning. Killian didn't believe a word of it, and he had no patience left for further questioning. If you still won't reveal who's behind this, you have no value in staying alive. His hand moved to draw the sword at his waist. From his pocket, the kitten sensed his intent. Killian truly meant to kill this maid. She couldn't let him become a tyrant. The moment the blade was about to leave its scabbard, the kitten leapt out, clinging to it with her whole body until it stopped. Everyone was stunned. Your Highness, why did you bring the cat here? What if she's discovered? We're discussing matters concerning the kitten. Naturally, the one concerned should be present. Irina's eyes locked on the kitten in Killian's hands. Her gaze was so intense it made the kitten tremble. Then, to everyone's surprise, the woman rushed forward like a madwoman. Just before she reached her, the kitten's heart leapt into her throat. So you're all right, my child. Irina explained. Every day before going to work, she would hide her child in the garden bushes. The kitten would always wait obediently for Mama's return. But one day, when she came back, the child was gone. She had searched every corner, but there was no trace. By coincidence, Killian had found the kitten and taken her in. Irina had believed her child lost forever, never imagining she had simply lost her memories and remained at His Highness's side. She didn't want to endure such loss and reunion ever again. Thank you for saving us, mother and daughter. How can I repay your kindness? Killian, surprised to learn she was also a cat, had one request. Were there any other cats still alive? Irina's expression turned sorrowful. No. After the incident when a newborn was offered to the demon, cats were declared evil. By divine decree, all were to be exterminated. Magicians were mobilized, and one by one, every cat was killed. The kitten listened intently, a strange heaviness filling her heart. Sadness, and guilt. It made her stomach twist. The scenes flashing in her mind felt familiar. Could this guilt belong to the body's original owner? Killian noticed her discomfort and came to her side. Net, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Irina hadn't expected His Highness to have even given her daughter a name. From the child's birth until now, she herself had never named her. Gathering her courage, Irina continued. Because of the curse, we remain in cat form generation after generation. Every red moon, we suddenly become pregnant. There's no cure, this is our way of atonement. Baron was shocked. The red moon appears only once every 70 years. The last one was 18 years ago, which means, you're already 89 years old. The kitten's eyes nearly popped out. Mama cat looks so young. If that was true, she herself wouldn't age either, and she, too, would suddenly become pregnant when the red moon returned. But Irina's next words deepened the mystery. We're the same as humans, born as children, growing up in the same way, and dying at 90. And the reason I never gave the child a name was because there was a change. We're human when awake, and turn into cats when asleep. But this child, Irina hesitated. The curse on her body is reversed. It seems such a situation has never happened before. Killian wanted to learn more, but Irina grew uneasy. She didn't want to reveal more of her daughter's secrets in front of the crown prince. The kitten noticed her mother's worry and reached out a small paw in encouragement. Feeling her daughter's support, Irina gripped that tiny paw and stopped hesitating. Please take me to the royal library. I know entry isn't normally allowed, but I suspect only there can we find clues. Killian didn't hesitate. Baron, arrange for us to be transported by magic array tomorrow. Mother and daughter hadn't expected the crown prince to agree so quickly. They were both shocked and delighted. After everything was discussed, Killian asked Irina about her future plans. The kitten felt a pang of reluctance. Now that she had found her family, it meant she would be separated from the man. I have one more request of your highness, Irina said. Before I enter the royal library, I hope you can take care of her for me. Compared to a lowly maid, she will be far safer by your side. Killian reached out to take his beloved cat. Since that's the case, I'll care for her for now. The kitten liked looking at handsome men, but she had never seen such a dangerously charming sight before. A man fresh from his bath, droplets clinging to his skin. Her face flushed crimson. Quickly, she helped him get dressed. It was far too stimulating. She nearly spoke human words. Killian understood exactly what she meant, but chose to ignore it. Net, sleep with me tonight. The kitten froze. Please. She wasn't just an innocent kitten anymore. Don't worry, I'll make sure you're properly dressed, he added. Seeing her shy reaction, Killian knew he had succeeded in teasing her. Man and kitten lay quietly on the bed. Staring at his exquisite profile, the kitten drifted into thought. Net, are you asleep? The crown prince's sudden voice startled her. To avoid awkwardness, she immediately pretended to be asleep. Killian sighed helplessly. Don't you know you turn human when you sleep? I'm not teasing you. I just wanted you to know, ever since you started sleeping beside me, I haven't had those cursed nightmares. It's so good to have you by my side. The kitten felt the same. She gently touched his nose to express her feelings. In this dangerous world, he was the only one besides her mother who would protect her. Her gratitude, and her desire to remain with him, grew ever stronger. The next day, the crown prince was ready early. When Baron arrived late, he found it strange that his highness wasn't with his clingy little kitten. Then, a tiny paw emerged from a pocket. Do you still need to hide when there's no one else around? Baron asked. Killian explained, she's just shy and doesn't want to come out. Inside the pocket, the kitten grew uneasy. What if he tells everyone about last night? She frantically punched his hand with her paw. Getting the message, Killian covered his face with a smile. All right, I won't tell. Just then, Irina arrived. With everyone present, they could begin teleportation. But it wasn't going to be that simple. Before Killian could finish speaking, they had already been mysteriously transported into the library without anyone realizing it. The crown prince could hardly believe it, but still warned, be careful, this is the royal library. Security here can't possibly be this lax. Purple Hair mercilessly popped his illusion. It's precisely because there are so many loopholes that we got in so easily. Killian held his head and smiled bitterly. When I become emperor, I'll have to fix so many problems in the palace. He then ordered everyone to begin searching for information about kittens. The kitten emerged from the pocket to help, but as she neared the towering shelves, the endless rows of books made her dizzy. After searching for who knew how long, a strange book caught her attention. Baron sensed the magical power emanating from it and wanted to tell Irina not to open it, but before he could speak, the crown prince and the others had already begun to read. Suddenly, a dazzling light burst from within the book, so bright the kitten couldn't keep her eyes open. Her consciousness blurred, until a voice rang out. When she slowly opened her eyes, she wondered what had happened. Had she been drawn into the book? Then that same voice spoke again. Child, this book contains my divine power. Remember carefully what I'm about to tell you. The kitten destined to destroy the empire is not you. Your special constitution means you are destined to bear the burden of saving it. What you must do is find the original divine decree and set everything right. Seek the child of my bloodline, perhaps they can help you. The light flashed again, and the kitten found herself back outside the book. To her surprise, the crown prince had also been pulled inside earlier, but fortunately, they both returned safely. Afterward, Killian and the kitten relayed everything they had heard. Being able to leave divine power in a book was something only high-level priests could accomplish. According to what they knew, the divine decree had been destroyed a week after it was issued, and the priest who died protecting it was named Nrus. Based on this, their next step was clear: seek out Nrus's descendants. For the kitten, who had spent her life confined indoors, this was her first journey. Unfortunately, she was disguised as a pitch-black little rabbit. She was deeply dissatisfied. Such an inappropriate costume would make it impossible to show her face in kitten society again. Killian explained it was for her safety, but the upward twitch of his lips was harder to suppress than a sneeze. The tedious journey soon became interesting. Their goal was to find Nrus's descendant, Soya, but they hadn't expected the once glorious Nrus family to have fallen so low that their heir would let others bully him without resistance. Killian couldn't bear to watch. He stepped in, teaching the bullies a sharp lesson. Afterward, they went to Soya's home and solved his food problem. Since you treated me to a meal, I won't do anything without compensation. Whatever you want, if it's within my power, I'll do it, Soya promised.